welcome to Gatekeepers. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the, foibles and pitfalls of world building. Now, this is one of the areas that I have a lot of trouble with, and we'll be discussing some of those things that I have trouble with in kind of an in-depth detail, and hopefully, Shadow might have some answers for me. So it is going to be, I do believe, just the two of us this evening. But let's get into it, shall we?
Absolutely.
So the first, and we're just going to jump right into it. Let's take some time since it's only the two of us. How's your week going?
Pretty good. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm in 4 online games this week. I've already done one with Bloodworth, and then tomorrow Connell's game here on Table Breakers. Mark from Mark's Genre Mixer, definitely go check out his channel. He needs all the help he can get. Not that he needs it, but let's give him some love. He's a great guy. He's running a Rules Encyclopedia game, then Bruce's game on Saturday. So I'm getting a lot of fun, playing online games. However, real life is also rearing its ugly head with my weekend schedule. My son's going to be in a holiday parade with the JROTCs and the Saber division, and he's pretty stoked about that. He's doing fencing and starting to kick some butt there as well. So it's been a pretty busy week. How about yourself, man?
Working that 40-hour grind. I work for a living and doing mostly drafting type of work. So production level drafting. But yeah, so I'm getting ready for the holidays. I am using up my vacation at the end of every week, so I'm actually only working 4 days a week right now. It feels great. Yeah, looking forward to 2 weeks from now when it's going to be Christmas weekend. So
yeah.
All right.
Are you ready for Christmas? Hey. Have you done any shopping?
Oh yeah, we did. We've got 80-90% of our shopping done already.
Wow, I have literally 0% done. I have not done a damn thing.
I'm looking for 1 or 2 more things for my parents, and then I need to get a few things for my brother, but that's about it really for me. I think we've already got her parents all sorted as far as what we're getting them. So
cool.
Yeah. So do you want to jump into the topic?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So the first pitfall. Now we are discussing the troubles of world building, not necessarily just the here's how you world build. We're wanting to. I need to identify what problems I have and what deficiencies I have during world building, and I'm hoping Shadow can help me, and maybe I can also generate some thoughts here as well. And chat, you're welcome to chime in as well. Your input's always valued. So the first pitfall many world builders have problems with is spending too much time world building itself. I fall into this pit every single time. I spend literal years, if not decades, building up an entire world, its government, its ecosystems, its constellations, all the things that makes a world more real. And this is a pitfall. The reason this is a pitfall is that I spend so much time world building that I never actually start the game. And my before I even came down here to the show, my wife's like, "Hey, so you're talking about yourself and your own problems, right? And how you shouldn't be starting, rewriting a game 3, 4, 5 times because you want everything just perfect." And I'm like, yeah, we're going to talk about that. So this kind of leads me to my first question. How much work do you put into a brand new world when you start world building?
As little as possible.
Oh, okay.
I draw the map, and I've always had a really good system of when I draw my maps, I can draw something. Mind you, I use a really cartoony style, and I can go into that later for the map. And little symbols, if I draw a dome. That's usually a temple or something like that. I have little subtle clues for myself, almost like a code that I put on the map so that I can tell whether it's a town, a city, if it's a castle. Even the way I draw the castle will tell me how big it is for the map. Not just the actual size, but the style that gives me subtle clues. The average person looking at it just thinks it's an artistic. Oh, jeez. Good luck to you, sir. I've never been able to make it past about page 20 of that book. It's so dry and boring, and it's a shame too, because had it been otherwise, it would it would be more helpful for the Tolkien fans out there that really want to deep dive into his world. Unfortunately, he just didn't get into it, and had he done it instead of his son, it would be a completely different subject. Everybody who ever talks about it has to admit that it was just not good. For those of you who can get into it, I applaud you. But for me, the names were just absolutely staggeringly impossible to remember.
Yeah, I ignored the names.
Yeah, I had to just go by A. A is so and so, B is so and so, and even then, I just couldn't get into it. And players are the same way. They care about maybe where they come from and where they're going, but the places they pass through, just they don't care. I hate to say it. There are occasional players out there that are taking notes and doing stuff like that, but I find myself in the same boat. When we're playing, I'm not going to say whose game, but I don't care. I know these towns and villages and places I'm going to visit once or twice. Maybe I'll go back, and if they become something that is more stable, then yeah, obviously I'm going to pay attention. But even then, I don't even have to remember the names. It's a rare player that gets that involved, and maybe it's because each of these games I'm relatively a new player to the game. In almost every situation, I have entered the game after the campaign has been going for quite a while, so I don't have as much time invested in it. But that's one of the things you have to worry about is making these places matter.
Okay. So so you're saying make the places matter to the players, right?
Right. You have to give them reasons besides that it's just the bigger town that actually has a magic shop. You've got to give them other reasons.
Okay. So I guess that kind of leads into the second point of this. Where do you focus your greatest attention when world building? Like what is your greatest focus then?
It's always the players. For me, in order to really make a world enjoyable to the players, I need to know the characters and the players. I'm going to give you a good example. James L. Everybody knows James L. He's one of the greatest guys out there. If he's going to be in your game, you want to know what you want to know the person and what they're like and what they come to the game for, and then what they're playing. And in his case, he's playing a halfling cook. Doesn't really want to be the adventurer, but of course deep down he knows he does, but the character doesn't. If you know what I mean, very Hobbit-like, as in The Hobbit. So he's got to get swept up into the story and the adventure somehow, some way, for reasons that make sense, but don't tear him away from maybe his own goals as a character and player, but at the same time include him in the adventure, make things tailor-made for each and every player and character. Otherwise, you're just only really serving yourself what you want. And
okay,
you can do that with the game I'm running. The world itself is what I've wanted to run as a world. As you know, from what I told you, you can see how it's vastly different from the standard fantasy world. It's not really a trope that people use for a lot of reasons, but I want to use that reason. So that for me, that's where I'm getting the fun as the DM. I'm putting, a few things in the world that I really want, but everything else,
Okay.
it's really about them. What do they want? If you have a paladin, a party of paladins, okay, for some reason, I know this is never going to happen, Bruce, but you have to really make, you can't expect them to try and cleanse the entire world of scum and villainy. They won't survive. You have to make it, there are bastions of goodness. There are places they can go where they're going to be appreciated. And then when they go off on a little adventure or long campaign quest, whatever, then they get to shine and do the things that, paladins are famous for, and not just irritating certain kinds of players. You have to give them tailor-made almost adventures and hooks so that they get to shine and enjoy the game regardless of how many players. You've really got to work a little something in for everybody. You can't have one player shine all the time and it's all about them, because then everybody else is like, well, I don't really need to be here, do I? I'm just the sidekick or the heel bot or whatever, so that so and so could just shine all day long. It's not a Superman comic. It's more like the Justice League. You've got the whole group, and every once in a while there's going to be a story about Beast Boy or some other character that just nobody cares about, but you got to give them that chance to shine. So you really have to know the players and the characters that they're playing and what they want for their character before you even start going too in depth, because you'll make stuff that just doesn't matter to them. They don't care. And if you've got, let's say you've got 10 players and only one of them gets to shine each evening, that's a long way around till it's so-and-so's turn to shine. So you've got to be very, very careful when it comes to that.
Yeah, Robert E. Howard apparently wrote The Hyborian Age as an essay that detailed the timeline leading up to the time of Conan, and this was for his personal use, not meant for readers, just to help him keep events straight. I do this as well, so that's part of my world building aspect. When I'm building the deep lore of a world, I will build the timeline out up to the point where I want to begin playing at, or where I want to begin, the players playing at. And I will fill that back lore in. And if the players want to read some of that, I will have like little blurbs here and there of like common lore, and then uncommon lore, and then exceptionally rare lore. So I focus a lot of my attention, and this again is kind of a pit that I fall into a lot. I'll focus my attention on the deep history of my world that I'm building. So that if my players want to discover it, they can, and I can do so more naturally because I don't have to just think it up on the spot. I've got a few comments here that I starred. Let's get to those. So Flady says, time control. Legit, I use an old school egg timer to tell me when to stop and do something else. That's not a bad idea, actually. And then Iron Man says, Pitfall, creating a beautiful map that the players are not allowed to see. Yeah, okay. I can see that.
That's why I draw my maps the way I do. They're very, like I said, cartoony. I draw my maps as if someone who wasn't a map maker drew it, because in these worlds, they don't have access to overhead views most of the time, and if they do, if you're flying on a Pegasus or something, how are you going to be drawing a map? You don't have cameras, you don't have this technology to make a topographical map. Even though Tolkien did that in one of his maps, I'm like, who drew this? How is this possible? You know what I mean? What Gandalf was on Gway here, and he's like, hover for a minute, okay? No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And I do have things like hot air balloons and dirigibles in this particular world I'm working on. But even then, those kind of maps aren't going to be available to the average person in a town when the players say, "Hey, where can I find a map of, the immediate area?" They're going to scribble. Mountains are going to be sideways, not looking down. So I just make a V with some little snow caps and some sketchy lines, and there's the mountain. And distances. How do people measure distances? By how long it takes to walk or ride a horse. What kind of horse?
Yeah.
Are you on a road? Are you on, are you just on a trail? They didn't have, tape measures to measure these things. So, I'll give them an estimate. Well, if you're lucky, it'll take you a week to get here or a month to get there. It might take 5-8 weeks to really get where they thought they were going to get in a month. So good luck, make sure you got a ranger with you and lots of extra rations.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And always stay by the river.
No, well, yeah, always stay by a fresh water source. Yeah. Good survival techniques. So I'm going to be starring some of these comments and getting back to them. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put that one up. Write the world for yourself. Present your gaming table with an adventure for all, including yourself. Okay. So the next, so basically you don't spend too much time writing and rewriting and revising and whatnot. That's the one that my wife always talks to me about.
If you can, we used to actually audio tape our game sessions with the little tape recorders. Okay. As opposed to writing it before, you can take notes afterwards. That's sometimes a better method than trying to write all this stuff out and then realizing you forgot something and left something out or missed something completely somehow because you've got 80 pages of text written and you wrote it 6 months ago and you just made shit up that night and now suddenly it changes everything.
Yeah, that's actually why I bought an Omni mic, because that's what I'm going to be doing for my future games. Is I'm going to be recording with the Omni to, be able to either A, host it onto YouTube, or B, for my own note taking as well. So that kind of gets into the next foible, I guess. I spend all this time building out my world because I don't want to build a world without intention. And what I mean by that is, while throwing paint at a canvas can be called art, it may be misunderstood by some or highly valued by others. And to that end, your world kind of needs to be built with some intent. What does that mean is it means that you should avoid haphazardly placing random governments and fantasy or sci-fi elements where they don't naturally belong. And for that, like I have a lot of blending in the game world that I run. There is one society that is 200 to 800 years more advanced than the rest of the world, but they are the cloud people. They live on a flying island. So they are more advanced because they haven't had to deal with all the conflicts everyone else has had to deal with. So they are naturally more advanced. And again, that was written with the intent of that being the case. So when I design things or when I world build, I keep structure and intent kind of at my core focus, like the area that the players begin in, like what is the government type, what are the people they're like, and what is their main conflict, like what is the largest source of conflict for those people that the players might have to run up against or deal with. Those are the things on my mind mostly when I'm kind of world building. So I guess my question to you is, how do you world build, with as minimal work as you put into it, how do you world build while avoiding building out areas that have no purpose or intent?
Well, I use a lot of generalities, and I
Okay.
stick to a lot of the tropes with with Tolkien in mind, or previous games I've run, or just the what I assume is the general idea of what a fantasy world would be like. You know, keeping in mind the feudalistic nature of these worlds. Yeah, sure, there might be places that have more progressive or advanced governments. That's really not always received well with the players. They expect a king and that sort of thing, and being able to just work their way up the ladder when they need something. They'll eventually try to get to the one, excuse me, guy in charge or gal, depending on the situation. And just keep it simple, stupid. Just let them their assumptions be correct when it comes to certain things, and throw out those surprises when it's going to have the most impact. A lot of times they're going to go to 20, 30 different towns, villages, and cities and things like that, and they're all going to in their heads just be different than mine, obviously, but they're all going to be very similar to what you would see in any sort of movie, whether it be a fantasy or even Dickens novels and things like that. They're going to expect a certain level of technology, certain level of availability of things. Unless you let them know, oh, this place is there's a magic shop on every corner. Otherwise it's going to fall into sort of stereotypical environment that they're going to expect, and let them help you build it as you go. If they're really looking for something a step above, well, then guide them to a place that's more to their liking. But for the most part, like I the amount of care they put into it is all you're going to get. You can try and force feed them all this stuff, but it'll take a while, especially in the beginning, before they really get attached to any one location. They're going to expect to be moving on. Let them help develop it when it's appropriate.
Okay. Uh, welcome, Bruce, to the panel. How you doing, sir?
I'm on mute because I've got this brewer behind me, so I've got the
Okay.
coffee pot just burbling up. So doing pretty good,
Okay.
pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Doing well.
Not too shabby, Bruce.
I kind of got to echo what Shadow says.
Okay.
Whenever I am starting a game, be it a one shot or a campaign, I do 4 pages of prep. Whenever it comes to quote unquote world building, I do 4 pages of prep. That's it. That's all I do.
Okay.
I draw a map of like the bay where they were at. I'll sketch out some cities and trade routes, and it's all in hex mapping. And then I'll do another map of like a town with a few places of notable interest, but obvious things like, hey, there's the nobles quarter. Hey, there's the adventurers area. Hey, there's the commoners. That's the townies. That's the guildsmen's district. And I'll have that because all of our games, as much as everybody bitches complains about magic shops, third edition pretty much fucked us and made it to where we had to have that as part of the economy. So I do that. I put those things there, and then I'll have like a map of like a couple properties, and that'll be it. A couple lots. I'll be at a noble villa, a warehouse. I'll do things like that, and that's my world building. And then I'll get like 12 or 15 names, and just start assigning people roles. Noble, quest giver, and I'll do that. But
Okay.
I don't really go into super detail on the world yet because the world's not filled out yet. Uh, between the first and second adventure, I have an idea of where I want to go and what I want to expose the players to. And I think less is more, because if you give them 42 pages of grade box read aloud text, their imagination's shot to hell. If you're like, all right, guys, before we start the game, you got to read through these 7 chapters of how the world is. That way you understand where you're at, and you're not going to think this is a standard Greyhawk or Forgotten Realms world. And I don't want to do that. I don't ever want to receive a 7-page background information for a level 1 character either. I don't care. I really don't. And I will repeat those words to anybody. I don't give a shit who you are. You could be an amazing person. You could be Mama Teresa. You could be a Japanese schoolgirl that's really cute when you're 13. But I don't care. I don't give a shit. I just, are you ready to play? Where's your dice at? Where's your figure? Ready to go? Let's go. Come on. And that's what I want, because I don't want the focus of my game to be my game. I want the focus of my game to be the players. That's how I get them to show up 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times.
Okay. So I mean that kind of touched on my point over here that says specific thing, like what specific things do you etch into stone about the area to make it feel immersive, or less and less than 1 or 2 dimensional. And you kind of touched on those topics already. I'm going to get back to a starred chat here real quick. Mm-hmm. So this is me in a nutshell. This is something I do, and it is I run myself ragged with this. If you're spending dozens of hours world building, I recommend not doing full rewrites. And I do full rewrites, by the way. And try to turn it into another thing. Let's see here. Other things, and that could generate income. Okay, books, adventures, comics, manga. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so I spend, up until I think just last year, I was spending probably 6 to 8 hours per week just world building. And rewriting my world building, because I've already written the campaign, or not the campaign. I haven't written the campaign. I've written the world and how the mechanics of the world work. Once using Pathfinder 1E rules, once again trying to use Pathfinder 2E rules, and I absolutely fucking hated those. So I'm like, you know what? I'm throwing that out the window, and then I went on my great RPG hunt, and I went looking at all these different RPG engines to get the magic system that I wanted into the world that I wanted, of the story I wanted to tell. So that's why I spent so much time just world building. I spent almost a decade on this one campaign. I'm going to welcome apparently Bobby Singer to the stream. Yeah, Idjit.
Sorry guys, I had
Shadow.
Sorry I'm running late. I had to do the wrap up for past Friday's Rift game that was hosted on Max's channel, that you could find on RPG is Dumb later on when he posted. It was a great time. I recommend everybody giving Rift at least a try once.
Okay. Shadow, you said you had something that you wanted to add?
Well, I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody's ever asked you this before, or if you've thought about it, but have you thought about writing a novel?
I have thought about it.
Using it to tell sort of like a story of your world, so that people could actually read that and maybe take note of the surroundings that way, and also to be able to sort of vent your creativity into a place that you could share a different way, so that you get that writing out of you, but you don't just like plop this big, chunk of wood in front of your players and go, this is, what the world's like. Instead, they could read a story of, a character or a party or something like that and maybe even weave it into your planned game.
Okay. So I have thought about doing my own book, but my problem is, so my brain is more science and math oriented, and English language, or rather English literature, was never my strong suit. English literature and the social sciences were never my strong suits. So when I have written, I think I think I was like 30 chapters into writing the first main story of the Guardians, which is the series of games in that game world that I always run in. The main story there was very long, and I was 30 chapters in, and I almost threw it all away because it just wasn't going where I thought it was supposed to be going, and didn't follow the game anymore because I was writing it as the game was being played. And my literal crap literary skills at that time, this was 20 years ago, just made it an awful read. Absolutely apparent. I wouldn't set that down in front of anyone to read ever. So,
well, that was 20 years ago, man. I guarantee you're better at it.
Potentially. I'm still more science and math oriented than I am literature and social sciences. But
just write in zeros and ones and you'll be fine.
Zeros and ones. Yeah, I could probably do that. It might take me the next 2,000 years to do it, though. Anyway, let's see here. Get a co-writer. I've thought about that, but I don't know anyone who would want to work with me. I'm a terrible person to work with on that aspect. I didn't throw them away. I've got them somewhere. Welcome, Scott, to the show. All right, so let's get into the next thing and back on the topic. And this is kind of like the next major hurdle to kind of avoid, or area to the Mogul Hills to avoid. And that's including things that you're never going to use, or that your players are never going to see. And this kind of harkens back to the first pitfall of world building. It's okay to build out a family tree for a regional leader. However, you have to make that important somehow to the game. Like if you've got the family tree of this local lord, fully flushed out, you have to figure out a way to include that in the game and make it important for the players to take note of. Because you can build, anything you want, but if it doesn't come into play, why'd you do it? Doing it for yourself, great, so you can track notes and so you can keep notes. That's great. So you can keep it all straight in your head. But if your players never see it, what's the value beyond just for yourself? Okay. Yeah, should always include things your players will never see. Makes the world feel real and unexplored. Yeah, okay. So that being said, what are let's see here? So what things do we include during world building, and why is my question here? Sorry, I've got my notes pulled onto one side and I've got chat pulled over here and trying to switch back and forth. So what things do we include during world building, and why do we include them? I'll go ahead and send this over to Shadow.
Well, you want to set the tone, and you should always have some sort of underlying plots and schemes going on. I always, when I make a world, I start with the bad guys. Who are the movers and shakers, behind the scenes or are out in the open, that the players are going to have to deal with. The kings and queens, they're always going to be looked at like the king and queen in Princess Bride, doddering old fools that, just, smile when they get kissed. And they're unless you really want to bring them in to the battle or the conversations, as Tolkien did from time to time. The players are just going to be trying to always get one over on them anyways. So I work with the things they're going to want to go after. The big bad guys. In the current game I'm working on, I'm going to have X number of bad guys. They're kind of running the show when it comes to the things that the players are going to have to go up against. Because in the long run, the entire world's going to be behind the players. They're going to be rooting for them because they're the heroes, provided that is, in fact, the case that you're running a game where the players are trying to be heroes. Once they get that, that sort of shtick going and they are the heroes, it's only going to be the bad guys that are going to be trying to do anything against them. Obviously you're going to have those pickpockets and those petty criminals that'll try to, pull something on them, get, a little bit extra money, in their tip, or try to pickpocket them or steal their magic items, that kind of thing. But I focus on the big bad guys that are creating the problem or problems that the players are going to have to deal with, because that's all the players. They're always so focused on their own path and their own next adventure, their next dungeon, or their next level, or all that other stuff is flying by them. They don't care. They're focused on what's the next adventure. So I give that to them. When they pay attention to the world around them in other aspects, then I'll reward them with that information, with reasons for them to care about this particular town over another town for whatever reason. And it's not just because, there's a magic shop there, so this town is the town that they care about, because for the record, there aren't going to be magic shops the way the modern games sort of try to push on us. I just don't do that. There might be a guy who knows a guy who might be able to find something for you, but there isn't this big Walmart of magic stuff, in every big town. It's just not like that. People are going to hoard their magic items, and if you find someone to sell it, it's going to be 2x, 3x the price with strings attached left and right, because let's face it, some of these magic items, would be looked at like relics used to be. They're a +1 sword, that the really low end tier magic items, maybe not so much, but as soon as you get past +2, you're talking, that's a big deal. Why would I give this up? You know what I mean? I'm going to, pass it on to my grandkid when he's ready, because he's got that sort of spirit in him. Why would I, sell it to you for 10 grand? What's that going to do for my family, compared to this? So, I try to make the magic, more special, but the players themselves, they're at least in my experience. I mean, everybody out there, they're going to have different groups of players that maybe they're more interested in different things. And when they are, then you fulfill that desire of their quest for that kind of information. But as a group together, they're focused on, getting to that bad guy at the end. And then the next one, then the next one. So I focused on the bad guys and what their plots are, what they're actually trying to accomplish, and how that's going to affect the world at each step of the bad guy's success. If they get this accomplished, this is going to have this chain reaction of all these things, so that eventually those tendrils, those waves of shenanigans that the bad guys are doing, it's going to eventually affect the players, and they're going to be like, hey, how come there's no bread anymore? Well, since you asked, this is, the reason, and then it leads to this reason, which will eventually, breadcrumb its way to the big bad guy, regardless of who the big bad guy is. And then I'll, of course, flesh those guys out. And if it's a dragon, well, a dragon's going to do things a certain way, and that's going to have those rippling effects that will eventually reach the party. If it's a lich, same thing. If it's just some evil magic user, his rippling effect is going to be a lot different. And so I have to work all those into the world and how it's affecting everybody in the world, because eventually those effects will come to the doorstep of the players. Thanks, Crafty, and everybody else.
Thank you, Flavy. That's awesome. Big bone girl.
There's no such thing.
Yeah, they're all built like
what about you, Bruce? Like, what things do you include during world building and why?
All right, so I got like 10 names of like various noble houses or people of influence, maybe a couple guilds, and I set up a timeline of how things are going to proceed without the player's intervention. That way, if the players are like, no, we're just going to go hop in dungeons and go scrapping for copper. Okay, well, cool. Like, in the meantime, the world will change, and over the course of time, your guild masters at the Thieves Guild are going to be replaced by maybe a couple people that are working for the Tracers and the Trader and Coasters Company, because they move in on the Thieves Guild and they completely gut it. And you have a bunch of guys that are hanging up at the wall by noon the next day, and they say, we really can't let this slide. We could break this apart, but it would just make more Thieves Guilds. So we will, over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, we'll continue business as usual, but it'll just be under official Traders and Coasters Guild work, because the Thieves Guild weren't really stealing anything of ours anyway. They were always using us to ferry their stuff. And then I'd have like a couple other consortiums available that would be wanting to sabotage that over the course of time. But I know how I want the world to go without the players getting involved. But if the players get involved, the players will dictate the focus of the campaign. No matter what I want to have happen, if there's a big titty goth girl at the monastery and she's helping all the young ladies, figure out their life goals, and she's turning them into priestesses and they're being sent out there, and the players instead say, we're not interested in Mama Mamory. We're really wanting to go the other direction and have like just sausage fest dungeon crawling. Okay, we just want that. It's safer that way. If we do anything with your female NPCs, the next thing you know, Tommy's fucking a succubus, or it goes wrong. It goes off the rails, and it turns into something we can't share on YouTube because we get blacklisted or the algorithm fights us. We want to have a nice PG-13, keep on the borderlands, maybe some risque moments from the Tower of Inverness, but let's not do those things that you want to do, Bruce, because you're going to have us involving ourselves in politics, and then we're going to get involved with things that are just over our head. I'm only a 3rd level fighter, man. I only have 22 hit points, and you're wanting me to face off in a verbal sparring match at one of the local Duke's parties. I'm not cut for this. And they would not let me do that. So, okay, fine. I guess we're just going to go like ask the guild, like, is there anybody else that you have a bag of money and an X on a map? So fine, we do that. We go do that instead. The current party I got, I'm actually pretty proud of them. They're looking at the map. They're looking at all the hexes they own and they're operating on, and they're trying to send their little teams out to go and quell disturbances. They're annexing more stuff. Kai's over there counting gold and waiting for the month to end so he can have another audit of, aha, we've made our money, and I've got 300 3rd level fighters exiting the academy next month. We're funded. And I have shit like that going on. So I mean, it's really just the current game I've got is completely different than what I ran before, and I think I've put people into it in places to where they can create the most enjoyment for everybody else. I've got Shadow in there, and he helped touch on a thing that is going to be a focus towards a higher level. Towards a higher level portion of the game, because we're going to focus on the Temple of Mitra a little bit for what was going on in the mid-levels with Connell and the others at the temple. And we'll see what happens. But I want to definitely get in those bigger things, and I want to have the players get to know nobles, and I want to have them get to know people in their town or in their community. And as they gain influence, they start getting responsibility. So like you might turn into a second level at 18 hit points now. Okay, cool. Well, like the guild wants you to take care of this guy, and he's gonna like walk your horse and make sure that it's fed and watered, and he's gonna guard it when you go into the dungeon. Hopefully he doesn't get killed. But you've got to take care of this dude now. He's all yours. And you meet him, and he's like an 80 IQ, really close to the bottom of that adult spectrum into like special boy spectrum area. And you have to interact with your NPCs, and you have to have that. You need to have the social game down, or at least learn how to talk to people. Not at sword point. How to be diplomatic. Not to fucking say, I rolled a 36 on diplomacy. I don't care what you rolled on diplomacy.
Yes, thank you.
I need to see you roll. Need to see you role play. I haven't seen you role play out of a wet paper bag for over 7 months. Come on. And I need that. And I think I need the players to kind of get involved with the game whenever we set up. So if you're talking about world building, it's not just on my end. I set up all the dominoes, yeah, but it's up to the players to knock them down. And knocking them down doesn't mean killing them off. It just means like having an interaction, talking with the stable boy, getting to know who is the farmer that brings the feed in. You know, why is this wheat, used by this brewer on the north side of town, and there's a perfectly fine brewer used by this church over here? Why aren't they using the better wheat over there? And then you get involved with politics and economics. And Kai is salivating somewhere listening to this. He's like, oh, yes, talk about it.
Well, quite possibly.
And the thing is that you need to have these little strands of potential, not adventure fodder, but conversation fodder. It's basically like you get into a conversation with an NPC, and it is more effort for you to converse and talk with this person than for you and the DM to hash out initiative and the order of combat and how it goes on the grid versus an orc as a low level character. I need you to interact with the world, and I need you to at least try to interact with the world, and don't just get like butthurt and say like, we're just going dungeon crawling. This is too intense for us. I need the players to want to play. If not, fine. I've got plenty of dungeons. All right, here's Rapanathuk, never been beaten by Pathfinder players, because every time they beat it, they like cheated and made 30th level characters to beat Orcus. So fuck it. Here's your hole in the ground. Have fun. First level. But I want people, they don't have to have a save the world campaign. It's more like a save the block or improve your little hometown.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with
Connell.
what Mark Hoffman says completely.
Yeah.
If things go the wrong way, I mean, the Thieves Guild gets gutted. Shortly after that, the Wizards Arcane Order is put on life support economically because they're dependent upon the people that traffic in the special items. I mean, yeah, you could go teleporting around for all your needed magical components for your spells, and that would really cut down on your adventuring, because you're instead, I'm hiking for these 17 various flowers. I'm adventuring to find the lock of hair from a basilisk or a Medusa. Insert one, I don't care. So it's really just one of those things where if the players don't get involved, they should at least be given a couple of adventures where they're economically put over a barrel, and like, I'm paying $9 a gallon for gas. Dude, I drive an F-250. Dude, we'll never make third level because we can't afford to adventure. Yeah, I guess this is going to suck for you. Oh, by the way, adventuring, it costs you 3,000 gold per level to level up now. That's a new thing. The trade consortium, they're fucking everybody. But no, that's a new inflation. So have fun. And I want but I want to just stop talking with that because you have other people here.
So Connell, same question. What kind of things do you include during world building, and why do you include them?
Well, I'm new to not really new to it. It's not one of my favorite things to do, but I have slightly done it here and there in the past. Um,
Sorry,
So
mute.
for those who don't know, Connell is the youngest of the game masters here, not by age, but by years of experience in game mastering.
That's incredibly fair. While you guys were off playing Dungeons and Dragons, I was doing sports and entertaining women.
Hey,
Or
now.
I thought it was entertaining.
You want to compare Little Black Books? Come on, man.
That's a different kind of show entirely.
Right.
I look at world building. I'm horrible at this. Just give me a second to explain. When I do world building, I look at it as a recipe, a lasagna, a spaghetti, making a meal.
Okay.
Because you could throw a bunch together, throw hamburger meat, some tomato sauce on some noodles and throw it out. Or you could build it up. You could build small things when you're making a sauce. Like there are hordes of not hordes. There is a couple camps of goblins over here that may or may not interact with the party. There are other aspects to this world that are there. There's no reason for them not to be there. But if the players don't go that route, that doesn't mean they don't exist. That means that's tomorrow's problem. So as I'm building up the different little aspects, I'm looking at the players. Like, trying to herd players is crazy. I mean, some DMs are better than others, but it's herding a bunch of snot-nosed three-year-old children looking for the new shiny thing. So when the ADD kicks off, ooh, what's that? I have something already built into the storyline, into the game, into the world, that I don't have to play. Okay, where's my book in my random table to see what I'm going to roll up? I have it there. So I'm building into the world for not random counters that they weren't expecting. We can play Let's Salt the Mine all we want. Not salt the mine. We could pepper the mine all we want. There's a lot of DMs out there that do that. There's a few games I've been in where peppering the mine was definitely the main MO. But that's not cool because you're falling back on bad habits. When world building, in my opinion, should go, like I said, go back to cooking. You're building the flavor of the world up. Just because they don't expect it doesn't mean it shouldn't be there. Do they ever get to it? Maybe, maybe not. But it's there. And maybe something they forgot about, let's say the goblins, because the goblins, we're 12th level. We look at goblins and they fall over. Ha, 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 ha. Maybe the goblins are now working for somebody. Maybe the goblins are in league with a lich who is 20th level, or so forth and so on. But little things keep games interesting for not only the players but the DM. If the DM has no dog in this race, he's going to get bored. So adding these small little details will bring him back to the table for the world building. I believe most times I've seen you, Jaide, world build over the years. I know what most of the time I get where you're going with when you're doing. I'm like, oh, this explains. And sometimes I don't care where the sources come from. Maybe, you're world building you're taking ideas from Pathfinder, you're taking ideas from whatever, Dresden Files. But as long as you keep adding to this world, the more you build it out, more of the flavor profile adds up. And it's just going to leave for a richer world than it is, well, A, B, C, and D. Well, they got to D, so I guess game is over because there was nothing else on the table. Does that answer your question? You're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that answers the question. The only other aspect of this concept is like what do you do when because you don't have like everything every minutia of every detail planned out. Or at least you shouldn't, because that goes back to the first point of over planning. But if your players do something that is completely off the wall, bonkers, completely unexpected, because there are some players out there that is their goal, that is what they believe game is. They just want to do whatever
Agents of
random
Chaos.
nonsense pops into their head. Which if that's the way they play, well, okay, yeah, that's the way they play. But what do you do for those moments where you don't have something kind of prepared, or like part of that part of the world like filled in? You just got like, you don't even have outlines of that area of the world built in or built, and your players go, "Hey, what's over there?" Like, do you just make stuff up on the fly,
Oh, yeah.
or do you?
No, yeah, hell yeah.
Or do you
Hell,
okay? So you'll make something up on the fly. Okay.
right.
See, I guess I don't like doing that. I'm more of the opinion of, I will get back to you because that part of the world isn't filled in yet, or I might make some. I don't know. I might downplay it a bit with something, or some improv, but I don't want to give a full answer because I haven't thought about that area of the world enough, I guess. And am I wrong to think that way?
Well, I don't think you're wrong. Me knowing you as that you are, and I've been around other DMs that like to world build. There's a level of OCD that's involved. I mean, look at Shadow. He is the grand master of OCD. I'm God. This is my world. Everything works out the way I want to. OCD. You know what OCD means, right?
Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah, I think that's not I don't think that's the right word you're looking for.
It depends on the DM. So I think even if, so we're on top of the tower at the fort that we just knocked over. We're looking south, north, east, and west. What direction we came from? We came from the south. So that leaves the other fucking three directions. Yes, the DM shouldn't have all the answers, but
what about northwest?
Northwest, yeah. But you should have a general idea, I believe, especially if you're doing a hex game, what's in the next three hexes surrounding that place. It's not so much over planning, it's just having a general idea. Because we don't know which way they're going to go next.
Thank you, Scott.
CDO.
CDO, not OCD. Alphabetical order, damn it.
Oh, but
Anyway.
I think, going with, if you know the lore, going with what Crafty says, if you know the lore of your world, you should always have at least be 3 or 4 steps ahead of your players. I'm not talking a mile away. I'm just talking, enough where you have an answer, even if it's a bullshit answer, because you never know when the good idea is going to hit you.
Okay, I like what Crafty's saying here. If you're writing lore for yourself, you can never overplan. You say that, but I'm pretty sure I can. But anyway, you go on to say you cannot plate an entire vat of soup.
Challenge accepted, right?
Either. Huh?
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, challenge accepted. I've been writing the same world for over 20 years. And I haven't published a book yet. And when presenting the lore to the players, it's all about how you plate the lore. Yeah, I can see that. I agree with that. 3 hexes over is doom. There we go.
Well,
Yep. People are getting
the edge of the valley, and you can look in the next hex over is 12 miles of crags and chasms, but 24 miles away, you can see the sloping mountains and their majestic peaks. When one of those little bitty bits of orange light on the horizon, you can see this belching spray of lava and magma and this irritating eye on top of this tower, just focused on you, beating on you, just focused completely on you, like a spouse upset that you ridiculed her mother. How dare you?
Have you been reading my diary? I mean, Smeagol does live in Hollywood, Florida.
Connell, as much as I give you grief for being the youngest person at our DM moots, I will give you also props for putting up with my shit.
Yeah.
Doing all right. And, Shadow gives you guff too, and everybody else does. And as long as you can weather it and you can continue to learn, I think you're doing fine. You're the only one out of all of us that's running a game for people for money. And the rest of us have had plenty of opportunity here lately, it seems like. I don't know about you guys. I've gotten an opportunity for making more money, but I don't have more time to table it, to put it to a table. And that's the sad thing, because I know these players would probably really enjoy it. There's like 6 people I know that are willing to put like $100 towards me a show. And I'm like, I don't have time for that.
If I get paid,
Send them my way.
If I get paid $10 per head and I got a table of 8 people because I run up to 8, it's not a bad night.
No.
There you go. You can apparently throw Flady in that list. I guess. Shadow, did you want to jump in on the improving commentary?
Yeah, actually, I do. My biggest and most famous world, I started out with one sheet of paper and I drew what they could see and what they knew. And from that point out, I improv the entire world as they went. You can only see so far. And the people around you in this sort of a situation aren't likely to know that much beyond their immediate area. They're only going to have, rumors and things like that. The average person doesn't go out traipsing through the wilderness, making maps and, collecting lore. They're much like Sam in The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. He had never gone past Farmer Maggot's domain. So I have it appear what I want as they're talking about it. Then I'll draw what they can see as they get there and keep going, because the full map, because they don't have access to the full map. They have to stitch together those pieces. They're going to be the mappers. They're going to be the intrepid explorers who are going to add to the atlas of the world more than anybody else. Occasionally they'll come across someone who's got a map that gives them, a big clue of an area, but I never let them see the whole map until, they've gone around the world. There's no reason. It keeps that mystery, and they see that big empty spot and they're like, oh, I bet the DM doesn't know what's there. Let's go there and fuck with it. Okay, cool. Guess what? Already done. Ready for you. That's never happened. I have never had to go, hold on. Next week I'll have it ready for you. I've never, ever had that happen to me. I've always had the opportunity and the luxury of planning ahead to a certain extent so that when they get there, I'm ready. But, we've got to be the masters of improv 24/7 when we're dungeon mastering. That's like one of the most important skills you can hone as a dungeon master. You need to be able to make shit up. That's why I don't use a lot of random tables and things like that, because why would it be random? It's already there before they get there. It should be. I don't need these charts. They're cool in the beginning or for the people who like using them because they want I don't know either. Let's find out. Let's roll random encounter. Bullshit. I knew before you guys got to the table what's around the immediate area. Now, you might not bump into the things that I've placed because you went this way or that way, and I'm not going to just keep moving that quantum ogre until you finally bump into it. But there are certain encounters or certain things that have to show up to move the story along. But for the most part, I've got a pretty good idea what's out there. And
okay.
You don't have to write it all down to the minutest of detail to be on top of it. You can make up a lot of those details when you get there. It's getting there that's the trick.
Okay. I think one of the reasons why I'm for this one campaign that I've been trying to get off the ground, that I'm stuck on, and this is the whole world building aspect. It gets back into it. So I've been world building the same world for over 20 years. Like I've had many games in this world. Some of them successful, some of them not successful. And the story I'm trying to tell right now is the Bronze Age of the world, like the first origin stories of the great legends. And the reason why I'm taking so much time world building is because the world is so vastly different during this era than all the other eras. It's not your standard sword and sorcery fantasy era or genre. It goes deeper into the like prehistory. So dinosaurs might be a possibility. The great legendary creatures like the Nemean lion, the original Hydra, the great thing. So I have to figure out, like, one, where are all these things going to be placed in the world? Are the players ever going to actually run up against any of this? Does it really matter? So this is kind of why my headspace is in the pitfalls and foibles of world building, because I've been stumbling my way through this for the past, at least I want to say 5-6 years of just this Bronze Era game. And that kind of brings me to the next point in a way. All the improv and whatnot. The improv will get you a long way. And I fully admit that. Actually, in my first game mastery video, I said that game masters need to be able to think on their feet. They need to be able to improv, and I fully mean that. And even though I don't like improving the world, I like improving the situations, not necessarily the world. I think game masters also need to be prepared. You don't need to go to the extent of writing a module with scripted dialogue to prepare for sessions, but you should have some notes on the area and the conflict that the players must navigate for at least that evening. So how do you prepare your session, for your players? If you have like notes or something of it, to your left, right, or around you, you go ahead and show them on screen if you're willing to, and walk us through how you kind of do session prep. Involving both world building and story. Now, Connell, I don't want you to reveal anything for tomorrow night because
I got another world. I got another world I'm working
tomorrow
on.
night, for those who are not aware, Table Breakers is doing a one-shot series. And it is Connell, the gate crasher, apparently. It's his turn to run a one-shot. So I don't want him showing those notes. So go, whoever who wants to start, show us some of your game notes and walk us through how you prep for a game.
I'll have to go downstairs to get them, but let Bruce take this one.
Okay, I'll shoot it over to Bruce.
Let me go grab a hex map real quick.
Okay. Everybody's grabbing things. That's fine. I'm gonna get to the chat. Well, I'm gonna get to the chat while you guys are getting ready. Let's see here. Make a big picture and fill in the details later. Yeah, I kind of do that. I have an area map for where I'm starting at, and then as they explore, they fill in more of the map. Like I have the map up here. Like I know like the full layout of the world. I have it all mapped in my head, but the players don't know what it looks like. What we should all remember is that the difference between world building and prepping a game. We world build for ourselves. We prep for others. We should only prep what the players would find useful. I agree with this.
I got it. I know what I'm going to use.
Oh, you got it? Okay. Single location and finish that. See how it plays and expand. Yes. Sometimes prep is an idea. It really depends on how much time you might have as a game master. I've actually gotten my prep down for like a one shot down to 2 hours now.
Oh God.
Um,
No. It took me this week. It's
okay.
Well, the one I'm running
All right, so
tomorrow
who wants
takes a little bit longer.
Okay. All right. It looks like Bruce has got something for us.
Yeah.
So walk us through your game prep here.
Well, here was a town that we visited a while back and managed to liberate from a big nasty Minotaur general.
No, that bitch.
And to the north of that was kind of like a little community, kind of overlooking some areas we call the Gardens, which is about 12, maybe 6 by 12. No, about 12 miles by 18 miles of nothing but just fertile ground. And this used to be swamp, but the hobgoblins came and they converted it to start feeding their army. Yes, Flady, I love Titan. Amazing game, but they hiked through some grasslands for a little bit, and then they made their way to along the river. They followed it over here to an old battle site, another set of gardens next to this little hamlet called Iversham. Iversham was home to a monastery, and the players found the 2 remaining monks that were there, and they said, we keep getting attacked by this big black dragon. This BBD comes in, and he was destroying anything he could get his hands on, and he wasn't really even here. It looked like he was kind of spectral or ghostly. So the players had to figure out how to take out this big black dragon. And so they hiked up to where there basically was a portal in the middle of the wilderness that led to one of those spectral estates, and they fought him there. But this is as far as my game notes typically go. I don't usually have a whole lot of, like I said, I have names and I have feats that I'll have bookmarked. If I need to know about a NPC, I'll create one real quick. A Pathfinder, it's not really real quick. Oh, let me get this next hour wiped out with this character creation for this 11th level character, or the CR12 I'm going to build. But this is basically what you see here. And there's sometimes I'll borrow from modules and such, but that's about it. Now with old 3.0 and 3.5 modules, you have to modify for Pathfinder. Yeah, Arnan's like a big black dragon might have a little black book. Yeah, he did. That was how they figured out the big black dragon. How they figured out that the Ebon-Tooth Fane was where they needed to go to next, and that was kind of where they met up with the Grave Knight version of the Minotaur General. And then once they finally defeated her, it was not easy. They had a few people drop into single digit hit points, and once they finally got that taken care of, they had to go take care of her armor. They had to go get rid of that damn bitch's armor because a Grave Knight reforms if its armor is not completely destroyed. So I found it to be really fun. That was like 5 weeks of campaigning right there. I just summarized.
Oh, wow. Okay.
5 minutes. Now, granted,
Nice.
that's because Pathfinder is a very combat clunky system, and one of these days I'm going to fix that, and you'll be finding that out in the first quarter of next year.
Awesome. All right, Connell, what about you? Show us some of your game prep.
Well, I use 3 things when I'm building a world out. I use I cheat. I use modern technology. I have my iPhone.
Okay.
I will look up. If I'm using Ireland as where my world starts with, I'll look up Ireland, and there's a bunch of information you can find out on a lot of the older countries in Europe. And I'm not saying you have to be Ireland. I'm just saying I'm using that island as a map. The same layout. The other thing I'll do.
Write what you know.
All right.
Write what you know.
Write what you know.
Right. Second thing I do is these little legal notepads. These things keep all my notes. This one has actually been used quite a bit the last about week and a half because of tomorrow. But all my small notes, things I don't want to really write down on the finished product, it goes onto this. And I'll get marked out, scratched out, thrown out, whatever. Then once I get everything basically the way I line it, then it goes into a notebook, a college notebook that's written pen. So all the what?
A college ruled notebook?
Yes. So all the information I need to know, I can find at the tip of my fingertips. This is not the 80s anymore. We have the internet. Fucking use it, especially if you got questions. Second of all, write down notes. It's not that hard. They might not come to play, but keeping good notes make for good games. And once you're happy with all your decisions on how your players are going to do A, B, or die D, write it all down in a notebook and make sure your writing is legible, and you can go back to it whenever you need to. I have a milk carton full of notebooks, just like this one, of not worlds, but different concepts or campaigns I've thought about running over the years. As Shadow said, write what you know. I know a lot of old world mythology, and we use a lot of old world mythology in our games. We might not realize it, but it's there. And so just go with that. And that's how I do it.
Okay, what about you, Shadow? Walk us through your session prep. Oh,
wait. Scott, this is a bridge too far.
I didn't do what Scott said, so.
Legible writing, that's a bridge too far, man. No.
Oh.
This is a bridge.
Guilty as charged.
Too far.
Yeah,
that's why I type it onto my Google Drive.
Nothing.
My notes are all typed on Google Drive.
Ever replace handwriting, writing letters.
Oh, bullshit,
man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I write like a doctor, but I did play one in Mexico. That's a story for another time.
Ant-Man. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you can see that. I start. That's one hemisphere of the world I'm working on. It's a very Pirates of Dark Water sort of based campaign, Waterworld. The Earth Deep Trilogy by Ursula Le Guin, mostly water. So it might seem like it makes it easier to come up with everything, but it's actually harder. Because like I was telling Jaide earlier, I went through all the monster books and I'm like, okay, I literally wrote down all the monsters that exist, eliminating a huge chunk of monsters that they will never ever run into. They don't exist. I then went through the populations of each nation, writing down the overall population number, and then I broke it down to like generically for lack of a better term, the character professions, lumping in certain kinds of other professions in with them, giving them a rarity. To bump into a cleric is, from common to ultra rare, that sort of thing, including, farmers and shopkeepers and things like that into certain categories. I'm next going into magic items. Magic items that just do not exist, giving the players the opportunity to try to create them when the time comes, or also just to make it easier because I don't want these things influencing the world and keeping not necessarily the magic level low, but in some cases that is sort of the goal. I want people to have to use old world technologies and advance them a little. I'm going to have cannons, and I have to justify why there are cannons but not handguns. And who produces that, because you can't have a high seas adventure without cannons. Trying to resort to just catapults and ballista is not fun in this sort of a campaign idea. Okay, well, you're at sea for weeks at a time. You ran out of rocks the first 3 encounters. Now what? You have no ammunition. You can't fight. You pretty much are running from everything. No. You got to have cannons. Besides, what's a good pirate campaign without cannons, right? I mean, it just, to me, I can't wrap my head around it.
I can.
Then of course, I've written. Yeah, but it ends up being mostly boarding actions, and that makes it really whittles down the crew to the point where I don't want it to where the characters are the only people left on the ship. Okay, because in AD&D, everybody has, like, if they're lucky, 1 to 6 hit points, except a few officers on the ship. So I would rather the players, get a chance to maybe knock out a ship. Yeah, fireballs make it too freaking easy. 1 fireball can take out an entire ship, and the encounter's over. And I'm
Rod of cancellation.
All you need is one crappy sailor named John McCain, and your ship could go away.
Yeah, right. Now, as for the game prep, I have to come up with the introduction. That's the biggie. Okay, we've all probably done the tavern thing a million times. I haven't done that in 20 plus years. I don't have any intention of going back to that. I'm trying to work out how each player character starts and gets to a common point, which obviously will be the ship. But I can't have them all come in the same way. I want each character to have their own reason for being on the ship, not just we're all just looking for a job and this is the only job the DM's putting in front of us. So I guess we're all, going to the ship. So I've got to make it reasonable. And seeing as how we're talking player characters, half of them are not going to be seasoned sailors. So I've got to come up with reasons why they're going to be there. Once I get them on the ship, then I can start prepping for the next adventure, because that'll probably take up the first session, getting them there and, finally out to sea and getting them familiar with the ship and all the things that they may be required to do, especially those who aren't fighters, because the fighters obviously are going to have, some experience. At least they're going to know their job. But if there's a thief on board, what's his job? Is he a cabin boy? Is he pretending to be, a sailor until he gets found out that he's incompetent and can't do these things? If there's a druid, Max said something about wanting to play a druid, or if there's a magic user, well, there's probably going to be people above them, because your sole magic user on a ship like this isn't going to be a first level magic user. What's the freaking point, right, guys? He's not going to be able to raise any wind or do any of the things that you would hire a magic user for, but you might have a magic user on board, maybe 7th, 9th level, but he's going to need lackeys, so I've got to work it so that everybody has a job and a place on board the ship, unless they're stowaways, which I have I have contemplated, but that usually just ends you getting tossed off the ship. So I really have to find a great way to start everybody in the adventure and get them to realize that they're now part of a bigger team and take it from there. So getting a good start is really crucial. Why they would care about each other more than anybody else on the ship, why they're going to consider themselves, a clique or whatever on board the ship, and how they become friends and give them role-playing opportunities to become closer and start to become friends, as well as the adventurers.
Maybe they were all shanghaied from the same tavern.
Yeah,
It's historically accurate.
I understand that, but that then builds resentment toward the overall campaign and the direction. They need to be not just on board physically, but mentally, and have to be excited to be part of the project.
There is a
you throw them in his conscripts or something like that. They're going to be looking for the first opportunity to escape, and that defeats the entire purpose of
depends on the relationship.
Literally everything.
I disagree with that.
It depends on the whole drafting one. Depends on the relationship they have with the kingdom. If it is a point of honor, not congratulations, you're now my gopher for X amount of years, but a point of honor. My grandfather served, my father served, I served, my child will serve. We have a legacy of people that served in our family for the greater good.
The greater good.
That's not going to happen. I need them to be excited to be.
We are one of the few nations that doesn't force people to draft once they get out of school.
Right. The clunked on the head. Now you're on a ship. That's something I'm not really willing to do. And I knowing some of the people involved, that they're going to be like, I want off the ship. If I have to sink the ship personally, that's what's going to happen. And I don't want that. I want them to be excited to be part of the entire concept.
You could take the entire movie of Anastasia and run that as your D&D adventure. From the start of being on a slave ship to watching it burn as you try to wade to shore. Oh, that'd be awesome.
No.
Yeah, the likelihood that they would actually be near shore is part of the problem. Like I said earlier, it's a very Pirates of Dark Water or even Kevin Costner Waterworld. Finding and getting to land, they probably left one of the two locations known to mankind going from point A to point B. There's nothing in between.
Hold on. A first level druid has one spell that's the most important thing to have when you're out in sea. Create water.
Well, clerics or druids, both, yeah.
Yeah, but no one wants a self-righteous cleric on board.
Yeah, that depends on the type of cleric.
There's going to be 100 crew. Amongst the 100 crew, there's going to be all four of the food groups, as higher officers than the players, as well as the players being involved in that. There's going to be a little bit of everything. I have to plan because, like I was telling Jade earlier, if a player character goes up a level, I can't get away with saying, oh, well, in 6 months when we reach land, you can train. There has to be people to train every single character on board. They have to have that ability to be able to look to someone who will Dread Pirate Roberts train them for the next level, maybe even a couple of levels throughout the course of, the initial journey, so that they're not feeling like, great, so all the experience points we earn is meaningless until we get somewhere else. There has to be, a higher level magic user, a higher level cleric, higher level fighter, the whole bit to help them improve along the way.
It really doesn't have to be. Anyways.
Well, if I want, players bitching and moaning about not being able to go up levels, because in AD&D, you don't go up levels without training, period.
Well, if you're not getting paid until the end of the shop docks at the next port, you're not going to get the money to be trained anyways.
Well, that's the cool part about the way I'm doing this. It behooves everybody on board the ship to train one another. If you don't know how to tie a certain kind of knot, they're going to teach you by the end of the day, and you're going to be just as good as everybody else, or you'll be doing it all day the next day. So training costs are not going to be an issue.
I'm just playing, devil's advocate. Fair enough.
Devil's advocate, yeah. So And we've covered this pretty extensively already. So I'm going to kind of mostly just talk about this note and then gloss on over to the next one. But this is, world building. When world building, I should say, it's important to not create a world without conflict. And this kind of harkens back to, world building with intent, the second point of the evening. Once you've established, or I'm sorry, the conflicts of your world help bring it to life, be they mundane or reality altering. Just because the farmer has lost his flock, isn't something that the players should just ignore. Why did they lose the flock? What's the conflict there? Did someone steal the flock? Did someone let it out on purpose? Or is something eating the flock? So having good conflicts, be they mundane or the reality changing ones where wizards are conspiring with great old ones, whatever the case might be, your world needs to be full of some kind of conflict. And I think Crafty set it up in the chat earlier this evening about having the like 3 omens or portents that the world is always spiraling towards chaos or towards entropy. And that's something that you need to kind of build into the world. Now, I've built many points of entropy into my own homebrew games, and the world is always spiraling towards destruction at some point. It's just, when is it going to arrive there, and how can the players delay it? It's not that they can stop it in its entirety. They can delay it, and most of the player actions are delaying tactics. So once you've established your world, or your starting area, and decide on conflicts based on the area for the players to resolve, you kind of have to make it personal to the characters in some way, and this kind of gets the ball rolling or the chase going, or getting the players involved. If you make it personal to the players' characters, they're going to want to get involved immediately. They're not gonna, if they already have skin in the game just at the start or the onset, they will get involved immediately because they don't want their characters to die, or they don't want their characters' goals to get absolutely trounced from the onset. And this kind of goes to, let's see here, I've got it started. Getting everyone together and starting the story is always one of the more difficult parts of DMing, says Scott. And I agree. And I think you have to have a strong opening conflict for the players to really bite into. And I think that is something that you kind of like, you have to world build enough of your area to have that conflict naturally be there. And I think we've kind of said that a lot tonight, is have good conflicts.
Are you familiar with is it the good, the bad, and the ugly, where he's got the Rojas on one side and he has the Baxters on the other?
That's a few dollars more.
$2 more with me in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Set up a campaign just like that at first level and let the players get to know that little crappy village they're stuck in. Let them get to know the movers and shakers between the 2 NPC families. And then by the time they crest around 3rd level, after they've done some things and some heists and they've gotten notoriety and they've kind of shown that they do have talent, let them have that big moment where they're able to actually pit both families against each other and either get smushed in the process or they manage to actually narrowly escape.
I know I said this before in other streams, but if it's the beginning of a campaign, it being a module or homebrew, world building, I find killing somebody is normally the best answer. It being a child, a priest, a young princess.
Suddenly got dark in here.
No. You need to put a fire underneath your players' asses.
No, you just went to kids first.
Life is cheap. especially medieval era. Hell, life is cheap right now. So you put the Coulson scenario into play. You have a person who ingrates who talks to each one of the players. Brings them stuff like beer. A happy-go-lucky Father O'Brien, and you put a round in his fucking forehead and then call it a day. All of a sudden, the players are like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that just fucking happened." And they're going to want to stop the person who did it. There's a couple ways to motivate people. Killing somebody is probably the honest way.
So, I mean, and this kind of leads to, the next major point I want to touch on. Go ahead. What?
No, Flady's like, death does bring people together. Just set the story in Philadelphia, and you could
nothing
do that with more. You could hit more people in the crowd with Chicago style sessions. Yeah. Session 1, you're all at a funeral for big homie Dookie Shoes.
Yeah, nothing brings people together faster than a wedding or a funeral. If one doesn't work, try the other. So this kind of leads to the next major point, and that is, when you're world building, no matter how deep into the world you're going to build into, make sure there's room for your players to, and by that I mean make sure that there's some kind of personal impact for the players themselves. You can spend months, years, or like in my case, decades, finally crafting a world to play in. But it's all for naught if your player characters are disconnected from it, or have no ability to make alterations through, meaningful role play, no matter how small that alteration might be in the world. While playing in a game, in a game world, try to remind the players to stay in first person, and speak to them through the NPCs also in first person. Speak to the characters, not the player. And take note of and use these character names and keep them coming back. Keep reusing some of these NPCs, make them personable, and make them kind of real for the characters, definitely. But if the players have some kind of interest or have bought into those NPCs, they're going to want to go out of their way to do things for those NPCs or keep those NPCs around, especially if they're helpful NPCs. And note any changes or actions the players take that may alter the world in which you're playing in, or alter the NPCs. If one of the players is a rowdy asshole and they do something in a bar fight and it hurts the barmaid, well, the barmaid's not going to forget that ever. And the barmaid's probably going to ignore that person, and they're giving
the barmaid's probably got an older brother,
or the bartender comes and kicks the player the character's ass, tosses them out of the bar, and bars them from entry ever again. So when things like that happen, you have to take note of it and make sure that the world feels lived in, and make sure the players also affect change in some way, not necessarily minor ways or things that don't mean anything, but meaningful changes. And this kind of gets back to Flady's point. I started this one almost at the beginning of the night. The players should be helping discover the lore as they adventure. Can possibly lead to passionate or creative investment, but should have a gentle hand on the rudder from the GM. And that's absolutely right. If you have this world, your players should have some say in the world to some extent, not full creative rights or licensing, but the ability to make minor changes, and you should take note of that, and then facilitate that to a certain extent. At least that's my opinion. What are your guys' opinions on that?
like if the players, if we're going to focus on a game where it's going to be Kingmaker, where the players are going to have responsibilities. Session 0 is you get to meet your NPCs, the NPCs that your family trusts you with. And yeah, when they say they trust you with it, you have the authority to position them in places or put them in, dangerous spots to do something as a line of work. It's you. You're the one responsible for them. And so you're going to get to know the NPCs' characterizations, their mannerisms, what their favorite color is, what they like to drink the most, things like that. And you have the ability to raise them or mentor them into something that would be helpful for you, but they're lesser status than you because you're like landed gentry or you're a duke or what have you. But you are talking to these guys and you are curating them and turning them into either hirelings or retainers or both. And they're supposed to be played to try and help you. And the first thing you want to do is you're on this map, and the only thing you can really see is that there's this little bar, and they get attacked by a bandit every month or so. And it's about 2 days away from having the bandit attack again. I think a game like that would speak to a lot of people because a lot of people would love to play a game where they're having to be listened to. They have to be trusted as a source of authority and accountability. And then when it's time for brass tacks, it's time to defend this bar from these ruffians. And I think a lot of people really have power fantasies about doing that. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, but they have to survive to a certain point in my games before I give them too much credit. It's too easy to literally die in a lot of older games, whether it be AD&D or Rules Cyclopedia. When you're walking around with less than 6 hit points, they're going to have to prove themselves before I really give them too much authority over the rest of the world. It's all too common. I've seen for players to just be, assumed to be the immortal conquering heroes that are never ever going to die. They're just going to keep going. They've got that plot armor because they're the players. I don't mind a player running through 3 or 4 characters before they finally get into swing with the game and realize, yeah, I need to be more safe and more careful, or I'm just going to be rolling up a character next week. Once they've gotten to that like 3rd, 4th level threshold, then I start, treating them like first-class citizens. Because if I invest a whole lot into them, I'm going to subconsciously be inclined to maybe, throw fewer monsters at them or give them little breaks that I wouldn't normally. I want them to earn every experience point to a certain point, obviously throughout the whole game, but before I let them start, making bigger impacts on the world, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, limiting their, the amount of things they can change early on, I think is also important. But allowing them to be able to make changes, I think, is very important. Because that's how I think the players' characters become tied to the world and that kind of makes them want to care about their actions and the things they do. Because I believe that if players are truly invested in the world with their characters, they'll less likely be motivated to become murder hobos.
Absolutely.
Because their character. Because if they have some kind of buy-in into the world, if they've got skin in the game, and they actually care about their character and the world itself, they're going to do things that may not make sense immediately, but will facilitate further role play rather than just rolling dice. What about you, Connell? What are your thoughts on this?
I think when it comes to role building, as I said before, with using the food analogy, I think a lot of it has to be predetermined. I think a lot of the world just needs to be the way it is. Now, if the players are on track, mission is to take out another kingdom, yes, that changes your world. Changes the world a little bit, because a kingdom that might have been in lore, been there for 100 years, 500 years, is no longer gone. So in a way, yes, they do affect or have effect on the world that you build, but at the same time, the world needs to be unmutable. You have to put set certain things up that are going to tie your players to the game. I'm not saying that is wrong, but this is not Minecraft. This is not, any PC game where, I'm God, I get to change the world however I see fit, because you let that amount of power loose on any kind of players, you might have 5 excellent players and 1 shithead. Or, you might have 4 shitheads and 1 excellent player. And whatever kind of game that you're trying to restore, you're trying to build in your world, is now shot to shit. I don't want them to burn down the house. I don't mind if they wreck a room, but they're not burning down the damn house.
Okay.
Shadow has something to say. He's muted.
Yeah, real quick, Scott. In all of the RPGs that I actually run, players almost never start at that young an age. Actually, they're usually upwards 21 to sometimes even 30. I'm running a character in Bloodworth's game, and I started out at 38 years old as a first level wizard. Maybe that's a newer trope in more modern games. I'm not sure, but yeah, age is more or less irrelevant. You could be a 50-year-old person and literally have less than 8 hit points in the older games. So maybe that's like a new thing. I'm not opposed to it, but at the same time, I'm not going to institute that, immediately.
So I can answer this. 3.5 or 3.0, 3.5 had starting age categories based on your class, and you would roll a die and then add that to a starting number. Now, Shadow, Bruce, and Connell will have seen this because Connell's game tomorrow, I rolled randomly to determine ages for my NPC siblings or character family, and I had for my character and the character's parentage, a set number that I added dice to, and that was something that came in 3.5 or 3.0, and it was originally based on class, I believe. Like a rogue was starting at I think it was 14 years old plus a D6, maybe a D4, and wizards started at 20 years of age plus I think a D12, maybe a 2D12. I can't even remember now. It's been a while.
Sounds like a good deal.
Bruce, did you get a chance to answer on the personal impacts and how much control or how much creative freedom that you give players?
I want the players, just to summarize, I want the players to be responsible for their hirelings and torchbearers and retainers. I want them to be able to at least tell me what's going on with their support group. And once they have gone through that, once they've done whatever they needed to necessarily roll, it's on to the next event. It's on to the next, we're going to have to fight for the freedom of the bar. So somebody better man the catapult, and we better see if there's any mines around here where we could import a couple more magic bullets for it, get the cannon going.
Now, I know you've run a Kingmaker,
I
the
love
adventure
Kingmaker.
path from Pathfinder, yeah. And so that has a lot of player freedom, doesn't it?
Huge amount of player freedom.
Okay. Do you ever have to limit like their creative potential in that at all?
The only limit is the timer. The days are going by.
Okay.
You have to force them, like, okay, guys, stop the analysis paralysis. You have to get going. You've wasted 2 days this month. You're burning daylight. What are you focusing on?
Okay. And for those who don't know, so Paizo published for the Pathfinder 1.0 a module set or an adventure path called Kingmaker, and the players' characters actually become like the lords of their own fiefdom, so to say.
Yeah,
their
it
own
starts
like little
off.
city state.
It starts off the Brevoy has got a nephew that they're just going to shove him down to the south in an area that's troubled in the sodden lands, and they send you down there, and your first stop is basically where you basically will take a route, more than likely, and it's a little bar about 4 hexes away from your uncle's castle. And the border for that, from the border, the uncle's land and yours, is this river, and they send you down there with no extra help, but you start meeting NPCs right away. And once you prove yourself, the PCs will join your cause. The NPCs join your cause, and other things happen. And you explore hexes, and you gain money every month. And then you explore more hexes, and you gain more money even next month and the month after that. But it's a very difficult sim because a lot of people don't want to do all the paperwork. The paperwork's really easy. It's just simple mathematics. It's just more complicated than a role master character creation session. And for those of you that just heard that, I know you just heard 4 hours wasted in your mind. No, it's not wasted here. It's just as complicated as that.
I joke when it comes to Kingmaker. I also make the same joke when it comes to playing Magic users. I just don't want to deal with the paperwork. But the difference between that wizard and Kingmaker is Kingmaker. You know, I was there for those those moments where the choices need to be made, and it did move really quickly, a whole lot quicker than it had right to. So I completely understand what you're saying there, Bruce.
Yeah. And there were things that like would happen, and you have to move, because like the very end of book 2, a huge owlbear raids one of your main towns.
I remember that nonsense.
And you have to fight a gigantic owlbear. Not a large owlbear. It's almost gargantuan in size.
Yeah, next time I run that, it will be a cocaine-driven owlbear.
I just saw the ad for Cocaine Bear.
It's based on a true story.
I know. There was a similar story to it where a wild pig had gotten into some campers, got into the campers' beer, and it got into the beer. It destroyed all the beer. It drank all the beer, and then it went and picked a fight with a bull.
Sounds about right. I think we lost Jaide there for a moment. Actually, since we're talking about grizzly bears, since we're talking about Kingmaker, for all those, especially Crafty, who's probably still with us, there is a Kingmaker's variation for 5e. I don't know how it runs completely. I've eyeballed the book. It will be on my list of books to buy and probably run for my own shenanigans. But if it runs the same way as it did in Pathfinder, it should be fun.
Yeah, it looks like it's really well done. They've done a lot of care to keep the themes that they have. There's some, if you look on the Paizo forums from 2010 and 2011, a lot of the guys from Paizo will use the Paizo forums talking about their adventures as they were writing them, and you can see the directors, the cliff notes of what was going on.
It is Pathfinder Second Edition with 5e. Well, it'd technically be a 5e monster manual, but yeah.
It'd be worth your while to convert it, Crafty.
It, like I said, it is definitely a game I'm looking into buying. And Scott, I am in the area. I could be convinced to run 5e for you and your lot if motivated, maybe not financially, but motivated with free food.
Sorry about that. I had to step away for a moment and have a conversation with my wife.
We don't like Pathfinder Second Edition. There are people out there that do. One of them is Chimerian. Kai loves it. It is a game that requires you to basically be at a PC or a tablet to let you do all the storytelling, and it does the math for you. You just have to input what statuses are going on with all your players, what's going on with your NPCs, and there's a lot of toggles that you have to do, and that's why the game is not well embraced.
I think sidetracking. I think Pathfinder Second Edition did a great move when it got rid of the Paladin, but that's just my opinion.
Everybody wants to get rid of the alignments, okay?
Except for the guy who's muted in the top right.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck what most people think, so not really worried about it.
I think.
Oh, that's fine, Scott. Whenever it works out.
I think we've had a fairly decent discussion about some of the pitfalls and foibles of world building. Does anyone have any final thoughts or comments on this?
What you guys have in the game?
Yeah, when it really comes down to it, as a DM, when you're making a world, make a world that you yourself would enjoy playing in, because at the end of the day, no one else is going to do that for you, and that's one of the few absolute joys of being a dungeon master, is the creativity that comes along with world building. It's why it's one of my favorite topics, because that's what got me into the game, was wanting to make worlds. Back when I was very young, still in middle school, and getting into this hobby, the idea that I could create a world and then people would then want to come and hang out and adventure and do all that stuff, that for me was the absolute draw of the game for me. I had already been through a couple of games where I saw where it could go, but I didn't enjoy it because it was run by assholes. And of course, back when you're 12, 13 and you're playing D&D, everybody's an asshole in the game. And I knew I could do it better. And to this day, I can't, count the complaints I've had on one hand. And I hope you guys, when you go out there, will just remember that. Make a world that you'd want to play in. And if the players don't enjoy it, sucks to be them.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but you piss off enough players, you're sitting at home playing with yourself.
And yet, yeah, and yet I haven't had that issue once in 43 years. So I must be doing something right.
Not bad.
Yeah. Any other last thoughts or additions?
No, I mean, I'm happy with. I enjoyed the information I got from the other three panelists on tonight. I'm looking forward to having you guys put up with my nonsense tomorrow. And this Saturday is Bruce's campaign. So,
I want to say that if you're taking a bat habitat on your galleon out to sea, where are you putting said bat galleon to collect your bat guano for your fireballs? And you're going to need to get rid of one breathing compartment so you can have like 4 wizards sleep there, and they complain to each other about like, you snore too much, you fart in bed, like, oh god, you don't clean up whenever the cabin boy leaves, you're disgusting. I in order for you guys to
Wait,
get
wait. Clean up after the cabin boy leaves? Do I really want?
No, you don't want to know.
No, you don't want to know. No, you don't want to know.
But you've got this sailing galleon, and you've got a couple people on there that are doing mundane work, and they occasionally will get the cannonballs to fire. Yeah, what are you feeding the bats? Like, are there that many mosquitoes out in the ocean? I don't remember that. I really don't remember when I was out in the middle between the Azores and the Bahamas. I don't remember a lot of these things. So you've got this group of wizards on your ship. Take 4 to 6 wizards, evokers, and just let them just use the bat guano that they get from their poop deck, and just let them cast their spells and do their thing, and have your ship power level the wizards. You will rule the merchant lines. I'm telling you. Yeah, bad players supply the blood to the bats. You try this at home, kids. This is something you can take to your table. Have a sailing ship, be high level, get 6 wizards that are evokers that are like level 6. They know how to cast lightning bolt too. But they don't have an inexhaustible supply of quartz rods, so I guess you're messed up on that one. But you've got the ability to have the bats farming the guano all the time. And because of the bat house, the free-tail bats down here, like if it was set off the shores of Texas, like it would be illegal to set fire to your sailing galleon, even if you're being a dick, because the bat house is a protected location for an endangered species. You could lawfare your aggressors to death if Fireball doesn't work. Have fun. Thank you.
And keep in mind, bat guano is not guacamole. Yes, they can look the same, but no, there are 2 different dips.
I've never mistaken
So,
the two.
I want to thank the chat. You guys were really wonderful this evening. You guys inspired quite a few conversation points. I hope you guys got something out of it. And for those who watch this show later at a later time, I hope you got something out of this as well. I know I got a few notes. I'm going to be watching this back later to take additional notes. Because again, this one was inspired by me because I'm on my 3rd rewrite of my Bronze Era game, and I haven't trashed my notes or anything. I just keep evolving my notes and evolving the game world and how I want it to run. So yeah, this has been a really great discussion, and I've gained a lot out of this. So again, I want to thank the chat, and I want to thank the panel. Thank you for bearing with me on this and discussing this with me.
Thank you for showing up.
So let's. Well, yeah, I mean, it was saying, the rambling with points and rambling with good discussion is always appreciated. Like, even going off on some tangents occasionally, it's all right. Especially if it accentuates the point. So without further ado, what are people doing this week? I'm going to start with Shadow.
Sorry, can you come back to me?
Oh, yeah, I'll come back to you. Okay, Bruce, what are you doing this week?
All right. Well, tomorrow night we're running. We're going to have a very special episode. A very special episode on Table Breakers, as we have Connell, the Gate Crasher, run us through his version of what the game should be like. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm sure a lot of other people are looking forward to this as well. Connell, find a piece of clip art or a a picture that I could use for your video that I will prepare with, and I will do my best to attract attention as I post it tonight. Probably Friday night before I hit the chill stream, I'm going to go talk about sorcerers for the game Dungeons and Delvers. I've not done a video this week. I've been really busy. I was really in pain last weekend. I shoveled too much at work and had to have a recuperation time away. So I wanted to just do that. And that Saturday, this coming Saturday, like they've already mentioned, we're running another adventure piece as the players try to figure out what's in the catacombs underneath this gigantic ebon tooth sticking out of the ground. And they think that there's vampires there. They think that vampires are there. They've already found a gibbering mouth or vampire. That was kind of scary and interesting. Our Japanese, by the way, the numbers from our Japanese audience was up like 40% while the gibbering mouth or vampire was on. I thought that was pretty impressive. The Vietnamese, not so much. The Japanese, they love my weird shit. Thank you.
All right. Shadow?
You know us. We've got a video or two every day. This month we're doing a lot of not Christmas stuff this year, which is a first for us. We're going to try and squeeze some of that in, but we're as you noticed, not only are we getting ready for a high seas adventure for role playing, but we're also promoting this game that came out a while ago. 2015, as a matter of fact, Galleys and Galleons. It's a war game, very, very similar to Man of War from back in the Games Workshop days when they didn't suck. But we'll be doing stuff like that and a whole bunch of other stuff on our trek to hit that big 500 by Christmas time. So if you haven't already subbed, check us out. Give us a sub if you like. And, wish us luck.
Awesome. What about you, Connell?
Well, let's see. Tomorrow I will be running my 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons or WotC 2nd edition, depends on how you look at it.
Wait, wouldn't it be third edition?
It would actually be 3rd edition.
No, we don't count 4th. We don't count 4th.
Yeah, we don't count 4th. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody does.
What did WotC do for 7 years while they lost money?
They tried to
rebuy the money they'd already made.
They tried to rebuy Paizo. All right, tomorrow I will be running my Christmas special. So all you children out there, I want you to go get a nice big cup of hot cocoa, a candy cane, and sit down, enjoy the Christmas special. I will present you tomorrow. That's what's going on Table Breakers. Friday night, me and a group of people are going to get together, and I will be playing my first time ever BX one-shot Christmas special with a friend. That's Friday, so I will not be over hanging out with Max. And Saturday, well, Bruce has already said it, we will be trudging through the darkness and wondering if we will run into vampires or not. Then Sunday, we will be talking about the movie itself, the true Christmas special. Maybe it's not so much Christmas. It feels kind of Christmassy, though.
Die Hard?
No. I wanted it to be Violent Night, but not enough people have seen it yet.
Is it good?
Oh, God, yes. I recommend everybody to see it. I would pay to take Jaide to go see it. Out of my own money, I would pay to take him. Because as much as he fought with me over the movie Shoot Them Up, he enjoyed that movie too. Don't let him lie to you. So,
Shoot 'em Up was a classic movie.
Yes, it is.
It's got Monica Bellucci at the 15 or 16-minute mark, shoving one of her boobs in a guy's mouth.
Who can argue with that? Now, on Sunday, we will be talking about the movie Citizen Kane. That was brought up to us as a movie to watch by Omenow. The movie, the most quoted line from this movie so far has been Rosebud. So that's what we'll be talking about on Sunday. And no one told me this movie was black and white. Wait, all movies to me are black and white. So that's the rub.
So I'm going to be, I've been meaning to get to this. I just haven't found the time. So I received something in the mail from Max over at Legion of Myth. This is from his giveaway. And I will be doing an unboxing of this, well, probably Friday. I'm going to probably shoot for noon on Friday. And I'll make it a live stream. Mostly because, well, I mean, I know most unboxing videos are like prepared and scripted, and well, it's an unboxing video. It's going to be live. It's going to be, anyone who wants to jump in and check it out, you're more than welcome to. But so yeah, this is a giveaway that I got from Legion of Myth. So I'll be unboxing that this week, and that's what I've got going.
Yeah, I got mine from Max also. I got mine from Max also last week. But it's going under the Christmas tree.
Okay.
Everybody loves the fire in their house.
And for those of you who didn't watch Max's giveaway stream, you'll be surprised if you stop by the channel. If you have seen the giveaway stream, you won't be surprised. So I already know what it is, and that's fine. But
yeah, that reminds me. I got to talk to him.
It is, and
I have our 500.
I want to open it on stream and look through some of it. So, all right. Well, I think that's the end. Hey, GM Zalkov just popped in. Hi, GM Zalkov. We were just getting ready to sign off.
What's happening, buddy?
So
we were just talking about your favorite edition of Pathfinder too a little bit ago.
Yeah, we were.
His dice were vibrating.
This is a family show.
Was
the only thing we didn't cover.
You're talking about killing kids. What are you talking about?
Hey! They're not real kids. Fictional kids.
Those are just orc children.
Exactly. Take that for any way you want to take it.
Now you're going to get the SJWs all over our ass.
Don't forget, buy your traps, restraints, and tie downs at Balsienga, and we will see you later.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
God bless everybody.
Until next week.